Basically, once you get these 3 lenses, you're set. You've got everything you need to make super high quality videos. Okay, so the first lens you absolutely need as a creator is a wide angle zoom lens. To oversimplify it for this video, we're gonna say any zoom lens between 10 and 35 millimeters. My lens of choice for this category is the Canon EF 16 to 35 millimeter IS. Now, before we get into why this lens is an absolute beast, I wanna make this really clear. You don't have to get any of the exact lenses in this video. The lenses I'm talking about are for Canon full frame cameras, but they should just be references. I'll link a bunch of similar lenses for different cameras in the description of this video. So the best part about wide angle zoom lenses is for video, they really are the do everything lens. If you're wanting to film yourself or vlog with a full frame camera, 16 millimeters really is the best focal length for getting a good amount of yourself in frame, as well as enough background that the viewer can actually follow what's going on. It's great for establishing shots where you want to show off a location, or you've just got a big object or building or landscape that you want to fit in frame. Additionally, wider lenses are actually the most stable shooting handheld. So if you struggle with shaky footage, shooting at 16 millimeters is really going to minimize all of those shakes. And because it's a zoom lens, you're getting a lot more versatility. Now, zooming into 35 millimeters isn't anything super dramatic, but it's enough to isolate a subject significantly more than you could with 16 millimeters. Basically, if you're looking for one lens to do it all, this is a phenomenal option. You can go from super wide to a pretty standard focal length, but it has one major downside. To make up for that, let's talk about lens number 2. Alright, so for lens number 2, I recommend getting a fast portrait prime lens, something in a standard focal length, which for this video we'll say is 35 to 50 millimeters or so. And we want an aperture number of f2 or lower. My lens of choice is the Sigma 35mm f1.4 Art. While wide angle zoom lenses like our first one are super versatile, they're also really slow. And what I mean by that is no matter what zoom lens you go with, the aperture number is not going to get nearly as low as a good prime lens. If you're someone who ever needs to film in low light, or maybe you're even just doing slow motion inside and you're really having to crank that shutter speed more, you're going to get significantly cleaner footage with a prime lens. My 16 to 35 only goes to f4, while my Sigma 35mm goes to f1.4. And while that might not sound crazy different, it's actually letting in 8 times as much light. In other words, I can shoot when it's 8 times darker or keep my ISO 8 times lower. That's a massive difference. Additionally, that faster aperture is going to get you a shallower depth of field or a more professional look, or more cinematic, as they say these days. So if you like to shoot professional B-roll, or you want your talking head footage to look a little bit more professional with that blurred background like I have now, the 35 1.4 is great for that. Now, if you want a little more compression or a little more range, you could definitely go with a 40mm prime or a 50mm prime. That just comes down to preference. But there's a gaping hole in our arsenal right now, which needs to be filled by lens number 3. Alright, so last but certainly not least, to kind of flush out this lineup, we need a telephoto lens. And anything between 70 and 300 millimeters is gonna work depending on your style of shooting, but my lens of choice is none other than the 85mm f1.8. When I'm out in nature and I want a close-up shot but can't get that close to something, this lens works wonders. Or if I want just a nice, tight, compressed shot shooting at home, it's great for that. Because it's a longer focal length than my 35mm, it's got more compression and even shallower depth of field. Honestly, I don't use it that often, but when I do, the shots look just magical. Using just these 3 lenses, you can get such a variety of shots and shoot in so many different conditions that I really think that's all you need to tell a compelling story. Like I said, I'll put a bunch of different recommendations from different brands in the description. You don't have to get these exact lenses, but use these as guidelines and maybe alter and tweak it a little bit depending on the way you like to shoot. At the end of the day, remember that once you've got these basic focal lengths covered, you don't need to keep buying glass. Your ability to tell a story, your editing, and everything else involved is going to make a way bigger difference than adding another lens to your arsenal ever would.